Okay. All right, so we're going to start. So everybody, welcome. And as many of you know, today is the International Holocaust Remembrance Day. It's a little bit different than Yom HaShoah, that's usually in May. This is the day that the United Nations General Assembly designated as a Holocaust Memorial Day. And today, I guess it's an auspicious day, and we have with us two, esteemed guests. First of all, we have Meirav Barkai, who will speak to us from Israel. Thank you for joining us, Meirav. And my colleague at ISGAP, Haras Rafiq, will also be speaking. Meirav will have the floor, and then she'll speak, and then we'll have some Q&A. People can ask her some questions, and then Haras will speak and on the issues, the theme of today as well. And then we'll end it. So we'll be here for about an hour. And I just want to say, so today is International Holocaust Memorial Day, and we invited Meirav, who is she'll explain her story and her background, but she's a survivor from the October 7th pogrom, and she's with us. And I just want to say that several of my colleagues who are combating anti-Semitism and the demonization of Israel, some of them are a little bit concerned that we're dealing with this issue of the pogrom of October the 7th on International Holocaust Memorial Day. And some people are actually saying maybe we're politicizing the Holocaust. And I just want to say to you, on two levels, as a scholar of anti-Semitism, and I know Haras will speak about this as well. From an intellectual perspective, from a political perspective, we have to remember that Hamas, who attacked the communities in the south of Israel, are part of the Muslim Brotherhood. Hezbollah, Iran, the Iranian revolutionary regime, which is Shiite but pays homage to the intellectual founders of the Brotherhood. The Muslim Brotherhood, in my view, is a perversion of Islam fused with European genocidal anti-Semitism. The words and ideas of the Holocaust, as Elie Wiesel always taught us, the Holocaust did not begin with the railroad tracks and the crematoriums. It began with words, and it began with ideas. And for the past 100 years, under the leadership of the Muslim Brotherhood, they've taken European genocidal anti-Semitism, the protocols, and Nazi fascist ideology, not as the military wing, not as the extreme element of this movement, but as a core element of their ideology, of their constitution. We look at the Hamas covenant. This is in their constitution. They basically plagiarized the protocols of the Elders of Zion as their raison d'etre, to not only destroy the state of Israel, but to kill Jewish people everywhere. Yosef Kawadawi, throughout his entire life, preached that the true believer, the true Muslim, is obligated to complete the work of Adolf Hitler. So as intellectuals at ISGAP, we've been studying this and warning about it for a long time, for many, many years. So we're not politicizing the memory of the Holocaust. The fact is that the genocidal anti-Semitism that led to the catastrophe of the Shoah is alive and well. It is the ideology of this reactionary social movement that is infused and sweeping through many societies. And tragically, and most alarmingly to us in the West, it's permeated, this ideology has permeated our best universities in the world. It's not just happening on the campus with the Students for Justice of Palestine who claim they were part of Hamas, but it's happening more perniciously in the classroom, where this sort of postmodern, post-colonial studies is acquiescing and even joining the extremists. So we call this the Red-Green Alliance. They advocate on behalf of the Muslim Brotherhood that calls for the extermination of Jewish people around the world, the dismantling of the state of Israel, and they're anti-democratic, they're anti-American, they're homophobic, they're sexist, and they don't appreciate moderate Muslims. In fact, you could even make the argument that the greatest victim of this pernicious reactionary movement are Muslims. And yet we in the West too often portray them as the authentic voices of the Muslim communities in the United States, in Britain, Europe, and the Middle East. So this is the threat. And I'll just say one more thing on a personal level. After the pogrom of October the 7th in Israel, I was speaking to a good friend of mine, Jerry, whose family survived the Holocaust. And we were talking about his parents and my grandparents' generation. And in a way, even though I know the history of the Holocaust, I know the history of anti-Semitism, I know our people's history, my grandparents' generation in my mind, and I guess this is how we protect ourselves. My grandparents' experiences, their generation of experiences, they could be astronauts from another planet. I knew it intellectually, but there was a huge gap between their experience and my reality. Growing up in Canada in the 1970s and 80s, different reality than my grandparents. And after October the 7th, I think this space between the experience of our grandparents' generation or our parents' generation, it collapsed. The people who want to exterminate Jews are carrying out their actions with the cover and with the support of intellectuals and the media of record in the West. And this is the situation that we're in 2024. And this is the challenge that we're facing not only the Israelis and the Jewish communities around the world, but any decent person who cares about democratic principles and humanity, about women, gay people, moderate Muslims, minorities, and Jewish people in the state of Israel. There is an obligation and a responsibility to stand up. And this is where we are in 2024. I don't think that I could have imagined in my lifetime that this is where we would be at, but here we are. So Meirav Barkai, thank you so much for being here, and I know, and for your bravery to speak about this situation. So really the floor is yours, and you're really an honored guest, and thank you so much for being here. So please speak freely, and then it would be great if we can take some comments and questions afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. My name is Meirav. I'm from Kibbutz Be'eri. I'm 43 years old. I want to start, we still have now 5 members of our community from Be'eri been captured in Gaza, and more than 100 Israelis, and on any place that I can say, we are waiting for them. We want them here with us. I think that if you have any connection, anything you can do, anything is blissful. I will tell you a little bit about myself and about the life in Be'eri before, and then about October 7th. So I come from I was born in Be'eri. I come from a big family. We are 5 sisters and brothers, and also my parents and my uncles live in Be'eri. And we are the community is 1,200 people. We have old people and children. It's a blossom community with the area have many agriculture, and when you come, I think that the first thing you can feel and hear is the quiet and the green grass, and we live 4 kilometers from Gaza Strip, so we know that every once in a while we have like a security situation, and we used to the rockets. We have alarms once in a while, and we know how to protect ourselves from this. Every house have a safety room, and when the alarm is on, we get in and protect ourselves and our family. I have to say the night before, it was Friday, and the kibbutz celebrated 77 years. And it was a nice party with music, and it was very nice to be and with all the friends. And early in this morning, on Saturday, October 7th, sirens began, and a lot of sound of bombing. We, as we used to, we got in the safe room, and I was there with two of my children. One is 11 and one is 9, and my oldest son, he was in a party. At this day, he was in the Nova party. We get in the safe room, and then I called him to ask if he's on the way to be safe too. And he told me, I'm on the way to Be'eri with my friends. Everything is okay, we're safe. Then by the phone, we started to get messages that the situation this time is different. And maybe there is suspicious that maybe someone got in the kibbutz. We began to hear shooting, like gun shooting. And messages began to arrive on the WhatsApp groups and everywhere. Friends of mine said that they are hearing shouts and talking in Arabic, and a lot of shooting. We understand that this is something different. At first, we didn't understand the size of this event, but as the hours passed, first, the WhatsApp group, people was saying that they are hurt, they was shot. Woman of my age wrote at noon that her baby was shot, a baby girl. Her name was Mila. I was sitting with my children, reading silently the messages, and all the time they was asking how much more time it will take, what is happening outside. And I tried to breathe and think about the best answer. We don't know anything. I tried to tell them that the army is on the way and everything will be okay. But on the WhatsApp group, people asked for the army to come, and no one came. We felt completely alone. On the family group, about noon, my mother wrote that she's hearing someone outside. I talked to her and by phone, and when she told me she's hearing them close, I told her, okay, I'm hanging up now and take care. The connection with them, with my parents and one of my nephews was lost about 12 o'clock. And only days after we found out that my mother was murdered. She actually, now we understand that when she understand what happening outside, she told my father where to hide, and also my nephew that was with them. And after they locked the doors, she told them she's going to hide in another place, but she went to the living room. And when the terrorists, when they came in, she told them she was alone. Later, we got messages from her phone, and one of the messages was telling the old woman lied to us and told us she was alone. My father was saved because of her. My nephew later came out of the room that he was in, and he got injured, but he ran away. He managed to get into to the gate of the kibbutz, and then the army took him to a hospital. I think maybe around 9 or 10 o'clock, my sister called me. She wasn't this day. She wasn't in the kibbutz, but all her family was there. Both of her son was together in her house, and she told me that one of them is injured. I tried to think how can I help him, and it was not possible to get out. So around noon, the connection with them was lost. As we know, they jumped out of the window because the house was on fire. A few days later, we found out that one of them was shot on that day, and the other was kidnapped to Gaza. He survived there for 50 days, and then he was murdered. Hamas took a video that he was my nephew was talking, and we saw that he had a long hair. He was after a trip to South America, and we saw that they cut his hair, and he looks so like a child. He's 25 years old. And Hamas, in the video, Hamas told that he was killed because of the army tried to get him out of there, and he was killed by Israeli army. But later on, Hamas filmed another video that shows how he was murdered by them. I think that from everything that happened to us, the loss of Sar, my nephew that was hostage there, was the hardest thing to us, because it happened after Hanukkah, after part of the hostages was free, and we began to think that maybe we will meet him again, and it was really devastating. I think that maybe I will finish by telling you that on that day, my son, the one that was on the Nova party, is a soldier. He was on a vacation. And when he arrived to Be'eri, he understood the situation. He saw our leader of the safety squad that was shot in the entry of the kibbutz, and he took his weapon, and after he met someone, he began to fight there, and for 3 days, 4 days, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, he was fighting in Be'eri. The fire stopped around Monday noon, but still a lot of mess, a lot of everything was so chaotic, and he stayed there to feed the animals and to collect the dogs from the house and the passport of our foreign workers from Thailand, civilians jobs after he finished the fighting. And he came to be with us. We was evacuated to a hotel at the Dead Sea. And after a short time with us, he came back to Be'eri. He's still there until now. For now, he's left his squad in the army. He's from Golani, if anyone knows. Next week, he will be the head of the new security squad. I have to say, on that day, 1,200 people on Be'eri was there in the kibbutz. More than 100 was murdered, and about 20 was kidnapped. But every one of us was in a different place. I was in my own house, in my own safe room, and my story is different, and everyone in Be'eri have a different story, and everyone have different things that he saw and went through. I think that now, if you have any questions.
Yeah. Thank you, Meirav. Thank you for sharing this with us. I know we all appreciate your time and your bravery to share this. The question I have, I'll start off the questions from my perspective. Actually, from your perspective, rather, what do the people of Be'eri need? What do you want? People who are concerned about Israel, the Jewish people, anti-Semitism. What should we be doing? What's the needs of Be'eri? What do people discuss in your community now?
Okay, I will start with me. Right now, I have everything that I need in the hotel, Dead Sea. We got part of us. My house wasn't. No one got in my house on that day. But for example, my sister's house was burned completely, so she had nothing at all. When we got to the hotel, some of us was barefoot, and we have some of us wear the pajamas. We got in the safe room at 6 a.m. And we was there for hours, between 20 to 30 or 40 hours. But we got a lot of donations, and we got clothes and shampoos, everything you can think about. And right now, I have everything that I need. I miss my home. I miss Be'eri a lot. I go there once in a while. Every time I have a chance to go there, I go there. But it's really hard. Dead Sea and Be'eri is far. It's a hard drive. I think that the hardest thing for us is the people that are still there. I don't know if anything can be done about this. And the thing after is we want to go back home. I know that more than 100 houses was destroyed on this day, and part of our community don't have where to live in Be'eri. I think that the rehabilitation of the kibbutz is now the main issue that concerns us.
And it's proceeding, the rehabilitation of the kibbutz?
First, I can say that now the kibbutz is clean. It's look good again, but still you can see all the destroyed houses and everything. I think that next week they will start to evacuate the houses that was completely destroyed, and to build again it will take a little time because we are still on a war zone, and also in Israel the people that actually build the houses are usually workers from Gaza or from foreign countries, and now there are less.
Yeah.
I believe that also soon it will be started.
Good, good. So Sima Vaknin-Gil, our managing director, you have a question, comment?
סימה, אתה על השתק.
לא, זה לא נותן לי. Okay, I couldn't unmute. I don't have a questions, but I just want to share with you my first impressions with Meirav the first time we met. We met for the first time a few weeks ago. It was the day that the ceasefire in Gaza stopped and we went back into fighting when the hostage deal was done. And I was supposed to be Be'eri and meet the delegation and explain, and we couldn't go to Be'eri because it became a war zone again. So she met us in Sderot, and this was the first time I met Meirav. And other than the story, and other than the bravery of her mother and her family, and other of the pain and things like that, I want to tell you two things that really impressed me, and I think, Meirav, I told you that also. First, few weeks after the atrocities that happened on October 7, and Meirav was hopeful. She was still speaking with hope for the future. She was still speaking about what we can do back in Be'eri, how we can bring back life to the Gaza area. How can we work with our fellows and our friends? She even used the word friends on the other side in Gaza Strip. So I think that you, when you spoke with the delegation, by the way, delegation of Muslim women, that was very, very powerful. To see the hope. And the second thing, Meirav was not willing to speak about Muslim atrocities or Gazans doing this and that. It was very clear that there was a big differentiation between Hamas and what Hamas does and other people in Gaza Strip. And this is from people, by the way, you should understand, this area with the kibbutzim and moshavim is the most liberal place in Israel. These are the people who really helped the Palestinians in Gaza. These are the people who promoted peace and promote peace in Israel. And they were paying the price for what the government of Israel was not able to do. So here, Meirav, few weeks after what she experienced, talking about hope and doing this differentiation, for me, Meirav, that was impressive. And I want to thank you again.
Thanks, Sima. Thank you. Anybody else with a comment or question? Brenda?
Just a comment. I wanted to thank you, Meirav, for doing this today. And, I teach at a large university in Virginia in the United States. And I really appreciate having this input directly from Israel. It means a lot. I also appreciate that you mentioned the name of the baby of your friend that was shot, Nira. I think saying names like that is meaningful, and I appreciated hearing that. Going along with what Charles had mentioned of what we can do for you, I'd like to know if there's anything we could do to help honor your mother and contribute in some way or some even non-monetary way. How could we help serve her memory and her bravery?
My mother's name is Geula Barkai. She was 81 years old. She had 6 children of her own, and she also
Adopted.
sorry, 2 daughters. She's the most giving and caring person that I know. I miss her a lot, and I take inspiration for her way and for her choice on life. I don't see her as a victim. She chose on that day how she wants to be remembered, how she wants that her great life will be ended. And I think that only by knowing this, Brenda, I think that this will be honoring her memory for me. Thank you.
Unforgettable, really, what she did and the way that you told it is unforgettable and should be repeated over and over. It's amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? It's very powerful, and it's important that we hear, Meirav, so thank you for sharing this.
We have somebody with a question coming in as a panelist in a moment, and
Hold
also,
on. Excuse
Seth,
me.
if you'd like to ask a question, please accept my
Excuse
invitation.
me. Okay, we have Seth, and then Ellen, and then Seth, please. Sorry, Daphne.
And excellence.
Thank you for having this program today. It was really very, very meaningful. It is Tu B'Shvat, and because it is Tu B'Shvat, we think about seeds for the future and for growth and for beauty. You've added this, Meirav, for such a difficult, challenging time. I thank you. My heart is broken for you and your family and the other members, but thank you for sharing this with us today so much.
Thanks, Ellen. Seth?
Charles, Excellence has a question, and she's already a panelist. Seth, you need to accept our invitation.
You go ahead. Who's next, Daphne?
Excellence, you had a hand up. If you'd like to unmute and ask a question. Okay, Seth has accepted. So Seth, you can go ahead.
I would like to say that my first cousin, Judy Weinstein, and her husband, Gadi Haggai, were amongst the first murdered and taken into Gaza. And we only learned in the last few weeks that they were killed almost immediately, and that only their bodies were taken into Gaza, and it was finally acknowledged that they were murdered in that early period. And I wonder how many of the hostages that are left are actually alive, or how many of the hostages that are left have been so abused, either sexually, physically, or emotionally, that Hamas can really never let them go under any circumstances. It seems to me that the issue of hostages is in the forefront of everything that we've been discussing from the Israeli perspective and to some degree from the American Jewish perspective. But I have a strong suspicion, and I wonder whether you share that suspicion, that the level of abuse and the level of murder was so catastrophic that the hostages are in many ways never going to be released, or many of them won't be.
I will tell you another story. On Be'eri, we have a family that called Sharabi family. There are two brothers, Eli and Yossi, and each one of them have Eli have two daughters and Yossi 3. On that day, they was both taken hostages, and Eli's family, his wife and daughters, was murdered. We think that probably he saw them murdered. Later, last week, our community get to know that Yossi was killed in capture. My sister Tammy, that her son Sar was a hostage in Gaza, think that as she know that maybe Eli was taken with him, and maybe part of the time that Sar was there, Eli was with him. We think that both of them lost members of the family on that day, and we think maybe they got little comfort from each other. My sister waiting for Eli to come home. She wants to talk with him too. She wants to ask him things about Sar. We still have hope that he is alive. We still have hope that he will come home. I don't know what to, and I don't know how his new life will look like. But we have to hold this hope for him, because as we know, he's still alive.
Thank you, Meirav. Excellence, are you able to ask your question now? You're muted. Okay, go ahead. No. Okay. Excellence, are you there? Okay, we'll go to Philip in the meantime.
Heartbreaking story. Thank you for sharing. Seems to me that to counter anti-Semitism, how do we get the media to tell the truth so that the world can see the error of their ways, if you will, and beyond honestreporting.com, of course, is doing their part. But in my case, I've written a number of letters to the editor that our Winnipeg Free Press won't print. Jewish Post and News here with Bernie Bellin has, but how do we get the word out? Thank you.
Thanks. It's a good question. Meirav, you want to comment on it or go to another?
Actually, I don't know what to answer, but I can say personally, I don't use to talk on public. I don't use to to in front of audience, and maybe you can see that I'm a little bit nervous, and my English is not is far from perfect, and I'm doing my best. I think that we all have to try to do our best and to say everything that we know. I think that part of the world will never know, part of the world will never believe us, but we have to to do our best and say again and again to whoever wants to listen.
You're right. You're right. All right. Okay. Thank you, Arthur. And then I think this will be the last comment, and then we'll turn it over to Haras. Well, Meirav, you can have a final word after Arthur, and then we'll invite Haras for some concluding comments.
Thank you, Meirav, for your bravery and your comments. I am on faculty at Yale Medical School, and we have a group called the Yale Forum of Jewish Faculty and Friends. We have about 75 members of faculty. We have an active website. We post all sorts of articles and podcasts, and Charles, I'll send you the link to our organization. We brought in Rabbi Diana Fursko this week on Monday. She just wrote a book entitled "We Need to Talk About Anti-Semitism." She had a public lecture. She spoke to medical students and house officers and graduate students. And part of the theme was anti-Zionism as the latest mutation of anti-Semitism, which is clear to all of the people on this Zoom. I direct everybody to an important op-ed in today's Jerusalem Post, which stipulates that there is no future for Israel without complete victory over Hamas. And I would probably say there's no future for Be'eri without complete victory over Hamas. And I pray for the unity of the Israelis to pursue the fight to complete victory.
Thanks, Arthur. So, Meirav, do you have final comments, thoughts that you want to share?
Just one thing, and maybe it's a little bit answer to Arthur. I accept what you say about Hamas, and but I have to say what I think. Still, in Israel, there will always be 2 or 3 million Palestinians between the sea and Jordan, 2 nations, and we have to find a way to live with them. I think that as a person, as a private person, I don't have any condition to come home. Some of our community saying we want the government to promise us that this and this will happen. We want Gaza to be flat or things like this. I know that this will not happen. I know that Palestinian will be there, and my condition to come back home, there is no conditions. I want to come back home, and I understand that maybe it still will be a dangerous place to live, but I think for me as a Israeli Jewish woman, mother, there is no place better or safer than my home still. Thank you so much for having me today. I'm sorry I have to finish and go off.
Meirav,
Thank
really
you so much for hearing me.
It was really it was an honor for us, and thank you for not only your bravery, but the light of your neshama shines bright, and you're a wonderful example to us of a Jewish neshama, and your sense of home and humanity is very powerful. So thank you for taking the time to be with us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so Haras, on this note, the floor is yours. And everybody, you should know, Haras, you guys can hear me. So Haras is he's one of the key researchers and managers of our Follow the Money project. He's been associated with ISGAP for many years. He was one of the founders of the Quilliam Foundation, which was a group of Muslim intellectuals and policy people fighting radicalization and extremism. He's advised prime ministers and presidents and is a voice of insight and sanity on these issues. So Haras, the floor is yours. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Charles. Can you hear me okay? Usually you can't hear me okay. I've changed my headphones.
Yeah, we hear you.
Wow, I don't know how to follow that. It's for somebody sitting thousands and thousands of miles away, in the comfort and the safety of my own home. It's very hard to, first of all, understand and appreciate what the people on October the 7th went through, and are still going through, because the suffering, the mourning, the struggle doesn't end the day after. It's something that people like Meirav and others will have to live with for many, many years. The subject of sort of what Charles asked me to talk about today is really to look at, a lot of people, a lot of people, they talk about Hamas as if Hamas is an organization, a terrorist, jihadist, extremist organization that exists in a vacuum. It's almost as if people believe that Hamas is breeding extremism. But the reality of the situation is that just like in Europe in the 1930s, the Nazis did not breed extremism. Extremism bred the Nazis. Similarly, extremism has bred organizations such as Hamas, ISIS, Boko Haram, Al-Shabaab, and others, and Al-Qaeda, obviously. Unless we get to grips as a civil society, because we can't just leave it to governments, unless we get to grips with the basic tenets of belief, the ideological tenets of what extremist organizations such as Hamas, who are part of the Muslim Brotherhood, believe in, we will never fix this problem. We will never solve the problem. And there will always be other instances like October the 7th in Israel, but many others prior to that, where Islamists, in this case, organizations, jihadists, have actually gone mass killing rampages. So really, in this session, very briefly, I'd like for us just to take a little moment just to look at what is it that Hamas believes in, what are the similarities in what's happening recently over the last few decades in the Middle East, and where are the similarities in what happened in Europe just before the Shoah, and just as importantly, what can we do to try and stop or play our roles in trying to prevent these extremist organizations gaining more momentum and having to deal with more instances of extreme violence or violence per se. And I've just put a slide up on the screen here. And by the way, you can see this if you go onto our website. You can see, and I'm sure Daphne, if you could just post the link in the chat. There is a report that ISGAP published looking at the Muslim Brotherhood, Hamas, and Qatar. And Charles mentioned rightly so that Hamas have stated in their charter, and we know from the way they're behaving and the reporting structures, that they are very much part of the Muslim Brotherhood. So I just thought I'd put a summary, which is just one of the pages from the reports, to just have a look at what is it that the Muslim Brotherhood believe in. And these are their stated objectives, because at the end of the day, they are one of the fathers, if you like, father organizations of what we call modern day Islamism. And Islamism is not a made up word. Islamism is the word in Arabic that the Muslim Brotherhood used, Islamiyun, to differentiate themselves from ordinary Muslims. And that's another point. What is the difference between Islam and Islamism? And I was very, very, I was full of hope and pleased when Meirav was speaking, and when Seema actually mentioned Meirav's outlook on life, even post October the 7th. Because one of the first enemies of Islamists and Muslim Brotherhood are other Muslims. And Islamism is different to Islam in the same way that social is different to socialism. Social is the way that we interact, and socialism is a distinct political ideology that happens to be left of center. Islam is a religion that just under 2 billion people around the world practice in different ways, often excommunicating the other. And Islamism is a distinct political ideology that really wants three things. And you can see, I won't go through every single book, so you can see the kind of things that they believe in, and you can actually see probably the similarities and some of the things they've taken from the protocols of the Elders of Zion and European anti-Semitism, which was imported into the region. The three things they want at their core. The first one is to set up a utopian Islamist state and enforce their version of law based on Sharia, their interpretation of Sharia. The second thing is to spread that around the world. And the third thing is to wipe Israel off the map. They're anti-Semitic even before they came up with these three stated goals. And you can see the anti-Semitism that's all on display. Al-Banna was the first leader. Qutb is the ideologue, if you like, behind the Muslim Brotherhood. And Qaradawi's Charles mentioned, the late Qaradawi was one of the spiritual leaders, the guides. He wasn't the head, and he wasn't actually one of the political heads of the organization, but he was certainly one of their spiritual leaders. And these are the kind of things that they believe in. Defeating Hamas on its own, whether we do it militarily or whether we do it another way, will not fix the problem unless we as a civil society get to grips around the world with the core tenets of what the Muslim Brotherhood and Islamism per se believe in. We'll be fighting this battle for as long as we're alive, certainly, and maybe even after that as well. So what is it that Hamas actually did with October the 7th? Why did they do it? And what have they achieved? Well, the why is becoming more and more apparent, and I've said this before, I've been saying this since October the 7th, is in part to stop the potential normalization agreement that Saudi Arabia was negotiating with Israel. What happened post that and what they hope to achieve, I believe that even, and now cast your mind back to the slide, just think about the slide I put previously. The destruction, the physical destruction of Hamas, the buildings, the people, it doesn't matter to Hamas, to the Muslim Brotherhood, as long as they are able to achieve their ideological goals. And what they've managed to do, in the same way that after the Weimar Republic in Germany, extremists like the Nazis were able to control the political narrative and unite people from different spectrums. Hitler and the Nazi Party, they took the far left policies of Mussolini, merged them with the nationalist far right policies of the fascists, in the sense of the nationalists in Germany, and were able to create the Nationalist Socialist Party. And of course, who were the scapegoats? The Jews in Germany. Similarly, what we're finding is that Hamas and the actions of Hamas, and post-October the 7th, we have seen a unification of people on platforms. First of all, I mentioned Islam and Islamism are different. Non-Islamists who have been emotionally radicalized to actually start joining forces with the Muslim Brotherhood and Islamists. Charles mentioned the Red-Green Alliance. We knew that the far left was already there. But we've also seen, certainly there are two cases in the United Kingdom, and there are more, there are two cases that are very high profile. One is the former leader of the British National Party, the actual fascists, the former National Front, and the head of the Knights Templar organization, also working with the Islamists. And the thing that binds them together, just like it did in the 1930s, was their hatred for Jews. Their ability, their desire, the way they're able to blame all of the troubles of their own individual inadequacies, the things that they're suffering from. And it could be anything more. It could be mortgage rates going high. It could be inflation. It could be anything. Everything is the fault of the Jews. And this anti-Semitism, these actions of Hamas, has managed to unify these people. And that's the threat we're facing right now. I saw something yesterday reported in the Telegraph newspaper in the UK, where 30% of young people in the UK that were surveyed, that were polled, actually believe that Israel is behaving like the Nazis. And there was a poll in the US a few months ago that said that 40% of Americans, especially younger people, believe that Israel is behaving like the Nazis. What a turnaround. The very people that caused the Shoah, and the reason why we're here today, to remember that, because if we don't remember, if we forget, people will repeat, history will keep repeating itself. The very same people that caused the Shoah right now are being blamed, and the whole narrative has been turned on its head. And a significant minority of people are starting to believe and equate Israel, the state, as the Nazis were equated. And of course, we know World War II, and fighting was a way that that was ended. But I often, as a young child, I mean, I remember Holocaust Memorial and the Nazis was something that was taught to us in schools. But it was always in the context of Nazis were bad for imperialism in Europe, and Britain were the people that defended the rest of the world whilst the rest of Europe capitulated. And of course, along the way, 6 million Jews were killed, and so were other people. But I often think to myself, if the Nazis didn't have imperialist desires to go past certain borders and to attack the United Kingdom and others, and they were just killing Jews, would Britain still have fought a war? I don't know the answer to that question. I honestly don't. I would like to think that the country that I was born in, the country that I was raised in, the only nationality that I have, that I choose to have, that humanity would have prevailed. But we just don't know. And moving forward, if we understand the threat, we also understand that ideologies cannot be killed with law and war. Just because the Nazis and Nazi Germany was defeated, fascism, Nazism didn't disappear. It raised its head, and it's raising its head again, albeit in an Islamist way. We, as civil society, members of civil societies, really need to first take the time to understand the problem. B, make sure that we don't let people who are extremists from any forms of life, whatever they are, whether they're the left, the right, whether they're totalitarian fascist, Islamists, whatever they are, take away our centrist positions and our humanity. And it's that humanity that I, as a Muslim, who's been focused on combating extremism and countering terrorism for nearly 20 years now, who spent a lot of time recently working with ISGAP and with Charles and Seema, is a message that I want to leave us with. I want us to go out and spread to other people and talk to people. And the way that Meirav does, I was so full of hope after hearing Meirav and her outlook after what happened on October the 7th, that as long as there are people like Meirav, and as long as we can emulate that humanity that she's been able to retain. By the way, I don't know if I personally would have been able to retain that level of humanity. I honestly don't know, and I hope and pray that I never have to answer that question. But it's that humanity that I think is what we should remember today on Holocaust Memorial Day in the context of what happened in the 1930s and 40s, but also in the context of what's happened more recently in October and is happening now, and moving forward, that humanity is something that I believe is the only thing, and our shared human values, that can actually try to bring some level of security and peace to a region that is going through a lot at the moment. Once again, thank you, ISGAP, for inviting me to say a few words today.
Thank you, Haras. Really, thanks for your insights and your wisdom. So we're a little bit over the hours. I think, I don't know, there's not much more to say at some level. So thank you for being here. And I guess, yes, we have to have the memory of our ancestors from the Holocaust, and to be vigilant that this never, ever happens again. And never again should not just be an empty phrase. And I think we need to redouble our efforts as a community, as a Jewish community, and people with a humane outlook, that these type of things can never continue. And here we are. So stay well, stay strong. I remember Elie Wiesel always used to say around 2000, 2001, that it's all hands on deck, that our community has never been so successful, healthy, educated, wealthy. We have so many professionals, we have sechel, as they say. And we need to redouble our efforts not to live in fear, and just to be strong and find ways to fight back, be it in the Middle East and even in Western democratic countries, and to fight not only for our rights, but for democratic principles and Jewish values. So stay well, and thank you for being here. It's a powerful day. Thank you, Haras.
Thank you, Charles, for putting this together.
Thanks. Well, thanks, Seema, for putting this together.
Thank you, Seema.
And thank you, Haras.
Thank you both. Thank you so much.
Stay well, everybody.